Look in the Northeast, and you can see some storms early today. They are pushing to the north up into New England. So we are clearing out for the morning, but we are going to see several rounds of rain across this region as we move forward. So you can see just some lingering spotty showers across some of the northern sides, but we are going to see another round of rain come through, say around dinner time. And then those are going to push through, stay with us through midnight hour. And then by the time we get into the wee hours of the morning, we should start to clear out just a little bit. Another place we're watching, Washington, D.C., where we are going to see some storms firing up a little bit later today. You can see some storms, spotty storms around the area by around 7, 8 o'clock once again, and then they push on out by the time we get into the overnight hours. So we'll keep an eye on that region. And then across Norfolk as well as Richmond, we are going to see some showers, hit or miss in nature, especially by later this evening into the early overnight hours. And you can see there's midnight, and we do have some pretty intense storms popping up and then trying to push through. So it could be a noisy night for a lot of you across the eastern seaboard as these storms work their way to the east. So let's take one more look at Raleigh, and you can see Greensboro right there. Same story. We're looking at these storms to pop up late in the evening, and then they're going to try to move to the east as we go through the overnight hours. There's Sunday PM, and then by the time the midnight hour rolls through, I think most of these storms will have cleared out of the way. So for a lot of these cities that we've shown you, it looks like these storms are going to be over by the time you get into your rush hour by Monday. So that's the good news. But these storms are all pushing towards the coast. So that means we are going to see stormy conditions by the time we get to, say, Charleston, Myrtle Beach. That's midnight hour. And then 2, 3 o'clock, a lot of these storms have pushed on through. So it is going to be a wet overnight. The good news, like we said, pushing out by the time you get your Monday started, kids on the bus, trying to get to work. So it looks like things will be cleared out by then for the most part, Molly.
Thanks for
the air quality there.
I see video or pictures of the sun with the wildfire smoke. Yeah. I feel like I'm looking at something like science fiction or like Star Wars
like
or
Mars.
something.
So it's like either smoke in the sky or storms in the sky. I don't know. They're both pretty bad.
Yeah.
Hey there, half past the hours. Weekend Recharge is rolling on. I'm Paul Goodlow.
And I'm Molly McCollum alongside Jennifer Gray, who's joining us this morning here for Weekend Recharge, just in time to talk about all of the wild weather we have this weekend.
Yeah, we have a mixed bag of everything, don't we? It's crazy.
Including thunderstorms. Take a look at this video.
All the way across the sky, but in slow motion. It looks so cool. You might have opportunities to see that today in the Northeast. In fact, I'm betting that you will for many of us. We have some early morning storms, most of them below severe criteria, but we also have storms that are causing flash flooding. And that includes in areas like Fairfield, New Haven, and Westchester, where we've got a flash flood warning until 12:30. There's New York City. So for a frame of reference, we're just to the north of that and north of the Long Island area. This includes White Plains. And this is falling on top of what is very saturated soil. We look at the month-to-date rainfall and you're thinking, okay, why did we get so much rain in August? Oh, Tropical Storm Debbie had a huge footprint of rain, started as a hurricane, of course, in Florida, but then back across the Carolinas, tropical storm. And that footprint of rain extended far into the Northeast, well away from where the second landfall was. And that's causing problems with the additional rain that we're putting on top of that now. So the dark green colors that you see, 2 to 3 inches of rain, maybe even some spots if we see repeated heavy rainfall over the same areas. Training of thunderstorms, you'll hear meteorologists call it, 3 to 5 inches of rain is within the realm of possibility. And I think it's this area right here that's outlined in green, includes D.C., Baltimore, Philly, Newark, Harrisburg, State College, stretching all the way up into Binghamton. That is a flood watch that extends until at least this evening, where we've got this upper level disturbance that's moving through. It's a slow moving disturbance. So what that's doing is it's allowing the rain to move in time after time again and really start to add up. But it's not just the Northeast. It's also the Southeast. So we're stretching from New York all the way across areas like South Georgia back into Jackson, Mississippi, all watching for the chance of severe weather later this afternoon. So I want to get you the quick timing on this as we watch the storms develop. You guessed it, in the later part of the afternoon, the early part of the evening, mainly south of Charlotte down towards Atlanta, with all of these moving to the south and to the southeast through the overnight hours. It'll be a bumpy night in places like Charleston as well as Savannah. Paul?
Week at the Weather Channel as Hurricane Harvey hammers Houston, Texas. It becomes the most extreme rainfall event in U.S. history. A local realtor heads out in his boat to rescue a woman and her family. You don't want to miss this wild ride. Here's a sneak peek.
Well, as Hurricane Ernesto continues to, well, now Tropical Storm Ernesto continues to churn just north of Bermuda, it's still causing indirect impacts to the eastern seaboard. And that includes a high risk of rip currents. Same deal yesterday, really the worst of the conditions peaking today, but we're still going to have some issues spill into the first part of tomorrow. It's mainly the Atlantic side, of course, the eastern seaboard, but even on, say, the Gulf side around Apalachicola and the Big Bend of Florida, we have at least a moderate risk of rip currents. Just always assume when you go to the beach that rip currents are present, and make sure you're swimming close to a lifeguard if the beach has lifeguards, and pay close attention to the flags because you can always have those dangers lurking in the water. Meanwhile, it's going to be a good day to head to the water if it's safe because it's going to be so hot outside. Yes, we have got some slightly dry air that's been in place for the past couple of days, but it's still allowing those feels-like temperatures to be in the upper 90s and triple digits. Let's start in Pensacola where the water temperature 89. That feels good when your air temperature is 95 and feels like the triple digits. As we move down to Panama City Beach, 91. No chance of rain today, so the burn time is going to be very quick and not a lot of clouds either in Panama City Beach. Let's jump down to the Clearwater area where we're going to be 89. That's just a few degrees away from our water temperature of 87. So make sure you got lots of sunscreen. The rain chances in Florida will start to pick up as we get later into the afternoon, especially in a place like Miami. So if you're there for some beach time in Miami, make sure you get there out on the beach sooner than later, Paul. And there's a couple of games today that will likely be affected by weather too.
That's right. We're in summer.
Well, join us for America's Morning headquarters at the Northeast. And right now, we did have some storms roll through New York City earlier this morning. Now, bulk of that has pushed up to the north. We still have some lingering showers across Long Island, but those are going to be moving through as we get through the morning and early afternoon hours. But this is not all. We have more rain to come. We do have some spotty storms that'll be pushing into the Big Apple as we go through later this evening. You can see 7 o'clock starting to roll through, and we could see some pretty strong storms. Could see some flash flooding across some areas, especially where those heavier downpours are. And those are just going to push through the east through the late evening and then early morning hours. By the time we get into daybreak, I think most of these will have cleared out. Baltimore, D.C., same story for you. We are going to see some pretty intense storms push through the area by the time we get into the evening hours. Maybe you have dinner plans. I would keep an eye on the sky because it could get pretty gnarly by the time we get into, say, 7, 8 o'clock. And then a lot of storms popped up around 10 p.m. Could be a noisy evening as you're trying to get to sleep. But then during the overnight hours, these should slowly start to clear out. Norfolk, Richmond, same deal. We're looking at these storms to pop through. So really all across the eastern seaboard, north to south, we are going to see these storms just gradually go from west to east throughout the evening hours, overnight, and then for the most part, clearing by the morning. So we are going to see them spotty in nature, yes, but we are going to see the potential for some really strong storms with these. So depending on where those stronger storms set up, you'll need to be ready. We look to see some showers push through, say, the Raleigh, Greensboro area, Durham, and they're going to be pushing through during the late afternoon, early evening hours as well. And then you can see 5 o'clock tonight, the time at the top of your screen, Columbia, and then Charleston, Myrtle Beach. So we do have the rip currents to deal with at the beaches today, but we also have the strong storms to deal with as well. So really not the best beach Sunday across the East Coast because of those rip currents and the storms that we're going to be dealing with throughout the afternoon and evening hours. So across Montgomery, Alabama, you can see these storms trying to fire up later this evening. Georgia as well. So just traveling from north to south with some strong storms embedded in those. Molly? For them just walking around in that water, just thinking about the alligators and the snakes. Yeah, it's just, whew. We're going to see some storms all across the southern part of the peninsula today. You can see starting out in the Keys, and they're just slowly lifting up to the north. So time is of the essence here. If you're wanting to get a little bit of beach time in, you need to do it early, especially if you live in South Florida, you're visiting there. Just be aware we've got some rip currents to deal with across the East Coast, and then we have these thunderstorms as well. So high of 90 today in Miami, and then those storms are going to be around for the Keys, Miami, and then we could see see some storms pop up around Naples later on. West Palm Beach, you might be clear for the time being. The large portion of your day, I think you're going to stay relatively quiet. Tomorrow, though, the storms do move into your area, working their way back. We have some storms across Jacksonville tomorrow as well, with high temperatures around 92 as that cold front just kind of sits across the state for a couple of days.
Well, thankfully, in the short term, no concerns about any tropical systems moving into a place like Florida, but we are heading towards the peak of hurricane season, so always have your eye on the tropics this time of year. But we are seeing some indirect impacts from Tropical Storm Ernesto, where we've got a high risk of rip currents on the Atlantic side, but even on the Gulf side around the Big Bend of Florida stretching up into 30A, we've got at least a moderate risk of rip currents. So be really careful today heading out to the water because it looks inviting. It's so hot in Florida this time of year, where those feels like temperatures well into the triple digits in places like Pensacola, Tallahassee, Jacksonville, Miami. Let's check out some of those beach forecasts, starting in Pensacola, where our water temperature 89. So when you have a temperature of 95 and it feels like the triple digits outside, even though the water temperature is close to 90, it still feels like a relief from the heat. Panama City Beach, no chance of rain or storms today with a high of 91. Not a lot of cloud cover either, so make sure you're wearing lots of sunscreen because the burn time only 10 minutes. Let's head down to Clearwater, where we've got a water temperature of 87, pretty close to our air temperature of 89. No chances for rain for you in Clearwater either, but we jump down to Miami. That's where the rain chances and the storm chances get a lot higher, all the way up to 100%. So if you have any beach plans today, I would say sooner than later, because the deeper that we get into the afternoon, Paul, the higher the chance of rainstorms get.
Heading to the beach.